I'm Devyani Vaishampayan. I'm the managing partner of the HR Tech Partnership. And I guess the next half an hour is really about sharing some views about what's really happening around HR tech, but particularly remote working solutions using AI and digital, and also how is the current crisis actually going to impact. And I have to add that it's going to be in a very positive way. The opportunity is far greater now, but let's get started in a more structured way. So I guess the HR Tech Partnership, as I said, is really does two things. Um, it We are specialists in the people tech area, startup area, and one is we run an angel investment fund. But the interesting thing is, all our investors are corporate or HR directors. And the whole assumption is that therefore they bring strong domain experience. The other thing that we do is we run a human capital digital innovation hub, and that is a 6-month program to help corporates experiment and engage with an AI based HR startup. So I think if you look at the ecosystem, we really have uh, two key components of the ecosystem. We have senior corporate directors who are either investors or clients, and then we have digital or AI based HR startups, and we are continuously looking at them either from an investment perspective or with a view to offering them as a solution for our hub clients. Just to give you an example of some of our current fund investors, as you can see, these are all very, very senior people. And the reason actually, this is a very unique fund, and the reason we have these senior people who've become investors is because A, they're investing in a space that they understand. But also, I think it keeps them in touch with what the current innovation and thinking is. So, but I think equally for the startups who get funding, the great advantage is we have a very relevant set of investors who can either help them not just with funding, but also with any mentoring, with any just support, also potentially helping them get into other corporates for their own business. So I think the model works quite uniquely. And over the last 1 year, we have done 4 investments, which is the first one was Recruitment Smart. So it's an AI based uh, talent management. So both acquiring talent as well as internal talent management system. Track Active is very interesting because, again, it's a digital app that focuses on musculoskeletal pain, which is neck and back pain. And again, today wellness is a huge area of interest for most corporates. Motivi is really a first line manager tool. So it does three things. You can give feedback, you can set deliverables, but as a line manager, you can also uh, kind of get a feel for team engagement. And finally, Rota Geek is about employee scheduling. So I hope this gives you an idea, but I guess the whole thing is really about the employee space. And just personally, my background is I have been a chief human resource officer in very large organizations. I have worked and lived internationally in China, in Europe, in Singapore, in India, and the US. And I'm now managing partner of the HR Tech Partnership. Okay, so having introduced the HR Tech Partnership, let's understand a little about how some of these solutions are going to become relevant, and from an investment perspective, whether this is a good bet. So even before the current crisis, investment in the HR tech space was going up a quarter and quarter. So in the first quarter of 2020, global HR tech investments neared nearly US 1 billion. And this was slightly ahead of the average quarter for the last 13 quarters. So I think what the trend anyway was more and more technology being used around the workforce, employees, people space. But I think the current crisis has really changed things significantly. What it has done is, I think it has forced organizations into remote working in a way they never would have done otherwise. And so even traditional organizations, call centers, I think the whole range, and this is going to be there for a sustained period of time. So we already see organizations now making some quite big calls about sustained level of remote working. So, for example, Gartner did a recent survey of CFOs, and 74% of organizations have said that they would be moving to some kind of remote working permanently. Or last week, there was an announcement by Tata Consultancy Services. Now, this is a global firm which employs 450,000 employees. And the decision they've made is over the next 3 to 4 years, 75% of their workforce, so we're really talking about 340,000 employees, would be permanently working from home. Now, again, as I said earlier, these are big changes. This is a big disruption, and so I think what is interesting to is to understand whether HR tech investment will go up, but logic says it will. Having said that, I think when the crisis started, clearly there was a slowing down, and the particularly around early stage in angel investing. I think that was one area which has got impacted because overall, I think angel investment is investors are becoming a little warier of angel investing. And the second area of funding that has is probably going to drive is corporate funding. And again, for many of the startups, I think that will be a bit of a blow because more and more corporates have been, have the last few years have shown an interest around funding, particularly tech innovations that could help either the customer but even the workforce. Now, before we get into a little more of specifics of how the current crisis is going to accelerate AI solutions, let's understand that digital has already been impacting tasks and the workforce in quite a big way. So, all of us are familiar with collaboration, a technology which enables workers to exchange information. Slack is very popular, but the current remote work crisis has made this an absolute imperative. So I think initially people now have resorted to Zoom, but clearly the emphasis now is going to be on more productive ways of using technology so that teams can work together, can communicate, but also in terms of project management and partnership, how can technology be used in a very different way? And similarly, I think for organizations, the focus will be on they won't see employees in the office. How do they help employees feel a sense of belonging? How can you get intelligence on what people are thinking, feeling, concerns, issues? And how do you again not lose productivity because of remote working? The second area that we've seen AI being used around the workforce is really augmentation and productivity. So, whether it's call center workers, whether it's really improving operational efficiencies, this has been a big area. And then, of course, substitution, which is really the whole specter of robots taking over human beings, but also robotic process automation. Again, the trend is going to get accelerated given cost pressures on businesses are going to go up significantly. But also, I think what the current crisis has shown is there's possibly a higher risk when you have humans involved. So let's take delivery and transportation. Now, it was always known that in about 15 years' time, 50% of the jobs in the sector would get taken over by driverless cars, by drones, by robots. But I think what the current crisis will do is it'll force organizations to move this really much faster than they would have expected. Because apart from costs, machines don't have the risk of the virus. So I think that's going to be a huge factor in decision making going forward. So I guess again, the point is we are entering an age of fluidity and it has implications. Um, I refer to the Gartner survey and I just wanted to quickly show that post COVID 19, 74% of companies plan to shift some employees to remote work permanently. That's a huge shift. And really, what we are seeing is that I think every part of the employee life cycle will be considered for AI and digital solutions or HR tech. But I think the four or five areas that are going to become particularly important for corporates right now is the first is culture and leadership. Now, there is enough conversation happening that today, given the current crisis, the kind of leadership behaviors that you need are going to be very different. CEOs and leaders have to put in a lot more effort around communicating, empathizing, being facilitative to employees. And I think AI and digital solutions will be vital to help them do this. The second big area of growth is going to be wellness, physical, mental, financial, and I think we'll come to that a little more. But similarly, learning and upskilling will be important because there will be a shift away from the traditional way of classroom teaching and learning. Coaching and career development will continue to be important. Even if you have employees who are dispersed, a manager has to spend time doing that. And therefore, employee engagement will continue to be a challenge for all leaders. And finally, I think redeployment. I mean, there is no doubt that the financial implications of this crisis will be big. There will be a lot of jobs that become redundant, and there will be a need to help employees redeploy them or get them to do other things. So, if I look at specifics now, what is happening around AI, digital, and talent acquisition? So currently, you see technologies is being used quite extensively in the recruitment talent acquisition space. So you have job boards, you have candidate attraction, you have CV screening, you have applicant tracking systems. But I think what you will see over the next 6 to 18 months is really AI-based CV screening. You are going to see a lot more of virtual assessment centers, virtual interviews, virtual onboarding. And in terms of technology, I think both gamification and facial recognition will become far more accepted. So I think as an investor, if you are wanting to understand which startup or which investments or which solutions could have a greater uptake over the next 12 to 18 months, as far as recruitment goes, I would put my bets on these two technologies. Let's come to wellness. And here I would really like to classify wellness into three categories because it's such a big topic. You have physical wellness, you have mental wellness, and you have financial wellness. So, if it comes to physical wellness, I think currently wellness is a big area in terms of digital innovation. But almost all the solutions you have right now cater to individuals. So, using wearables, using sensors, whether it's 10,000 steps, whether it's nutrition. I mean, this has been quite a big boom area. And the current crisis also obviously has forced more of virtual Zoom physical exercise sessions, but also virtual GP sessions. Now, from a corporate perspective, the next 6 to 18 months, I think what organizations will have to start thinking about is how can they start facilitating physical wellness a little more. So it's not just individuals using individual apps, but a corporate providing a solution which can help support and enhance employee physical wellness. There's also going to be a need from organizations, and this is particularly industrial organizations. So I've worked for companies like British Gas, Rolls Royce, where health and safety has always been big. And in the past, you had an occupational health team, which often used to be on the premise. And increasingly, the emphasis was on ensuring that, the height of the chair, the desk, all those requirements had to be taken care of. Now, what you have right now is employees working remotely, and not just remotely, but often having to make do with working at the kitchen counter. There's a lot of single people who just have a bedroom, and so they've been forced to work on beds. But even otherwise, I don't think you have a whole family that is geared towards having well thought out table and chair arrangements to work for a sustained period of time. And so the emphasis on an organization taking care of employees, helping them in this area is going to be more relevant. And so, for example, one of our investing company, Track Active, is what it does is it helps individual employees figure out what their own musculoskeletal condition is, whether it's neck, whether it's lower back. It then provides personalized exercises. It also nudges, it also rewards. But from a corporate perspective, you also get data and analytics about what's happening to employees. Are there any pain point areas or is more support needed? And similarly, I think solutions that provide support for specialist health conditions would be also is going to gain traction. But in terms of technology, I think what physical wellness will do is see a greater level of sophisticated chatbots with two-way communication between the user, the corporate, and the solution. The next area, important and huge area, is mental wellness. And again, this is really a difficult time for everyone, but particularly difficult for those who have young children at home or who have carer responsibilities or who live alone. And so isolation is going to is a big problem. And again, the fact that remote working will now be happening over a long period of time, it means that organizations will have to start giving greater emphasis on support around mental wellness. Now, again, what we have currently today is, again, a lot of individual apps, which is on mindfulness, which is around positive feelings. So, reframing your thoughts, helping you with sleep, and also a lot of motivational coaches, which help you get into a more positive and focused frame of mind. But over the next 12 to 18 months, corporates will have to start investing more. And particularly, I think the problem of isolation and emotional company. And currently, you do have conversational bots and avatars that can help you with it. But also, I think providing support around specialist areas, whether it's panic attacks, whether it's self harm, whether it's depression, and I think in terms of technology, augmented reality, which you currently already have virtual avatars and pets, but I think the adoption of augmented reality will definitely get accelerated, particularly around the mental wellness area. And then finally, I think when you look at financial wellness, what you have currently is, again, apps and solutions which help more individual consumers, and I don't really see enough corporates providing this as a corporate solution, but that helps your employees either educate them, helps them watch their spending, or you have helping people just around affordable loans. And currently, I think paying furloughed staff is also taking up a lot of time, and so solutions that help organizations do that. But over the next 6 to 18 months, I think a situation where you're going to have varied pay requirements. So even now, you have a lot of pay cuts, voluntary pay cuts happening. You have reduction of salary and benefits. And both these will mean that your standard payroll solutions may not be capable of handling this. But equally, this is also going to be a very emotional area. So I think a solution that can help management to do both would be great. And I have seen some instances of that. The amount of temporary staff will go up. And again, having worked for large corporates, I know most corporates are geared really for permanent employees. So I think solutions that can help payment of temporary staff, but also in a way that makes it instantaneous. So if you need to get paid for a week by the 20th, earlier an organization would be very happy to wait till the end of the month when payroll starts happening. Today, given I think the tight financial conditions that a lot of employees are going to be in, even the little things of making sure they get paid on the day they actually are supposed to, it happens smoothly. They get any advance warning if there's going to be a gap. All that will contribute a lot towards creating a stronger sense of employee loyalty and engagement. And so I think solutions that help around that will be important. Also, solutions that build a stronger connection between financial and mental wellness. So I've seen a great solution, for example, that not only helps you plan, but can also help you start identifying if you get stressed. And more importantly, it can start giving the organization some feedback through data and analytics about, is this, are your employees getting stressed about financial issues? So, in terms of technology, I think blockchain solutions will start gaining popularity, and it's going to figure even more in terms of uh, pay and benefit solutions that corporates can offer. The other thing to keep in mind is benefits. I haven't really covered benefits here in terms of the slide, but I think a lot of organizations currently, or most big organizations, or almost all big organizations, have some kind of an employee benefit program. And increasingly over the last 10, 15 years, the trend has been to offer a basket of options, help employees choose. But even then, a lot of the benefits were connected to eating, to shopping clothes, or towards travel. And I think, given the COVID crisis right now and the situation over the next 12 to 18 months, a lot of those benefits may not be as relevant, or the uptake may not be there. But equally, I think what employees are going to need is greater support at home, given the changed remote working environment. And for example, I've seen a solution that focuses on offering uh, support either to young mothers, and that could be more nanny arrangements or childcare arrangements, or it could be if you have older parents at home or you have carer responsibility. So I think solutions that can offer several, a digital platform that can offer several different options in terms of care and support to employees is going to be another big growth area. Um, I guess the other area that is going to see a big rise is learning and coaching. Now, a lot of employees currently who work from home, but probably initially were not as busy. I think one of the key things they started thinking about is, can I use my time more effectively? And so I think trying to look at app based learning is something they've instinctively gone to. But most corporates today currently still use either classroom training, um, or they use learning management systems, which are really the big systems, part of big HRIS systems. And therefore, the feedback is they're not very effective. Um, or you have providers like LinkedIn, which have become very popular, or you have individual apps which are referred to. But what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months is there will be a shift. The shift will be more towards AI based training apps. And what these apps do, or what these solutions do, is firstly, they're capable of providing a very personalized and customized training to employees. Um, Clearly, you can do it anytime, anywhere. But also, I think in terms of the design, its ability to engage, to give feedback, to reward an employee when they do something, but also at the same time provide a strong set of data and feedback to the corporate around what are employees accessing, what kind of learning are they spending time on, becomes really important. The other thing, many of these, when I say about personalized, is I think I've seen some solutions that can also take into account your learning style. So, as an example, let's say this topic, time management. Okay. Now, I personally may find, oh, reading about it is helpful. Someone else may decide actually watching a video about it is useful. A third employee may actually find that doing an exercise and tracking and something that helps them with that could be far more effective. So I think today's AI based solutions are also capable of capturing some of this how do you like to learn aspect, incorporate that into your solution, and then make that available. Which means that overall, I think the ability of corporates to engage employees becomes very different. The second area of learning is going to be, which is going to see a huge increase, is digital skills. And you already have some of that, but to date, digital skills have still been considered a kind of specialist area. And either you need it in certain parts of the business or you need it for, for your technology organization. But what's getting apparent is every job is going to need some level of digital skills. And what the current crisis is doing is it is forcing many businesses to rethink their business model. So let me give you an example. Traditionally, let's say hotels, I think. So hotels have been brick and mortar buildings, and the way hotels were managed was very in a hands-on way. And yet you have Airbnb, which has grown very successful, and that's a tech company. And so the skills needed for those two organizations, even though both are in the hospitality business, is one organization needs more traditional hospitality skills, whereas the second organization needs mainly digital skills. Now, in the past, more traditional businesses would have hesitated to take this step. But it's interesting because last week, for example, I was in a conversation with the president of a large business, oil and gas business. And they have, I guess, given the combination of oil prices as well as now what's happening, they've made the decision that a digital strategy is going to be core for them, which means every employee in the business will need to get upskilled very rapidly around digital skills. Now, what that looks like, the depth in which that needs to happen clearly could be different for different groups of employees. But I think digital upskilling is definitely a strong, from an investment perspective, I think it's going to do very well. And I think in terms of technology, again, gamification is going to be big as far as learning and coaching solutions go. So I guess I hope this gives you a flavor that the current crisis is actually going to be quite a big opportunity area. And what we do, the second part of what we do is Human Capital Digital Innovation Hub. And this is really a 6-month program which helps corporates experiment and engage with an AI based HR solution. And the reason we've set this up is I think a lot of organizations find struggle to find a good solution because it's still an emerging area. They want obviously a quality one because you don't want to take the risk of implementing something internally and having employees and line managers get put off by it. So we help minimize the risk by sourcing the right solution. We also make sure that we help them do the pilot. Um, and we also handhold them in terms of any learning the team might have. But the last part of the program is also knowledge sharing. So we put them in touch with a couple of other corporates, and they can learn from each other's experience, but they also get exposed to each other's solutions. So I guess this if I were to kind of say what are the key takeaways when it comes to the investment scenario, and particularly given the huge disruption to the workforce, remote employee working that's going to happen in a big way. Uh, the first is wellness, upskilling, and culture is now going to be a strategic priority area. So earlier you had business leaders who knew it was important, but who probably thought it was the financials were priority. But today, I think, given the kind of disruption that's happening, investment in these three areas would be a good opportunity. And therefore, but apart from that, any large scale remote working will accelerate investment in digital and AI. However, investors will still be cautious and focus on later stage angel funding. So I think early stage companies will still struggle. And I think the ability of angel investors to take a risk will still be a little low. As I said, I think corporate funding will also dry up or may not be as easily available as it was in the past. But I think the thing is, especially if there are corporates who are or leaders, business leaders who are watching this, is be agile in experimenting because you can't wait for a guaranteed solution. The hub is a great example of how you can experiment, pilot, and be handheld, and yet start adopting digital technology in a big way. So So I hope the this short kind of insight into what's happening around AI, workplace, digital disruption, but also from an investment perspective, some really great opportunities coming up, um, and I am very confident that over the next 2 to 3 years, AI and digital will start making a much bigger impact, and adoption rates actually are going to be far faster. Thank you.